History doesn't collapse in a single dramatic moment. It erodes quietly in conversations, in headlines, in the stories we tell ourselves about power. Every generation believes it would recognize tyranny if it saw it. We imagine we would be the brave ones, the resistors, the truth tellers. But history suggests something more uncomfortable. Most people don't wake up one day and choose oppression. They drift into it, through loyalty, through fear, through convenience. There's something deeply human about wanting to belong, to pick a side, to defend your team. Politics has become more than policy, it's identity. And when a political figure becomes part of someone's identity, criticism feels personal. Evidence feels like attack. Accountability feels like betrayal. We've seen this dynamic play out around figures like Donald Trump. For many, support isn't just about agreement, it's about allegiance. And when allegations, investigations, or associations surface, including conversations surrounding powerful elites like Jeffrey Epstein, the instinct for some isn't to demand clarity, it's to defend, not necessarily because they know the truth, but because the tribe must be protected. This isn't about one man, it's about a pattern. Throughout history, powerful networks have often seemed insulated from consequences, wealth, status, and connection shields, and the public reaction tends to split into two camps: blind defense or blind condemnation. Very few pause long enough to ask deeper questions about systems, incentives, and moral responsibility. Power protects itself. That's not new. What matters is how ordinary people respond to that reality. And then there's enforcement. Agencies like US Immigration and Customs Enforcement operate under federal authority. Their actions are framed as law enforcement, national security, border control, and legally, many of those actions fall within statutes passed by elected officials. But legality and morality are not synonyms. History forces us to confront a hard truth. Harmful systems rarely see themselves as harmful. They see themselves as necessary, as protective, as orderly. When reports surface of aggressive detainments, family separations, or questionable due process, the defense is often simple: they're enforcing the law. And maybe they are. But the deeper philosophical question is this: when does following the law stop being morally sufficient? The most dangerous words in any era might be, "I'm just doing my job." Under regimes like Adolf Hitler, atrocities were not carried out only by cartoon villains. They were carried out by administrators, clerks, officers, rail conductors, people who believed they were fulfilling a role inside a legal structure. They had uniforms, they had paperwork, they had authorization, and many convinced themselves that responsibility lived above their pay grade. This is how systems functioned. Not through constant, overt cruelty, but through normalization, through paperwork, through procedure, through citizens who decide it's easier not to look too closely. Now, drawing a historical comparison doesn't mean saying two eras are identical, they're not. Context, scale, and intent matters. But human psychology, that part doesn't change much. Dehumanization, blind loyalty, bureaucratic obedience, moral outsourcing, those patterns repeat. It starts when we excuse behavior from leaders we like that we would condemn in leaders we don't. When we defend power reflexively instead of evaluating it critically. When political victory becomes more important than ethical consistency. It continues when citizens accept that some groups are less deserving of empathy. When enforcement becomes spectacle. When strength is admired more than justice. And it solidifies when questioning authority is framed as betrayal instead of civic duty. The danger isn't disagreement. Disagreement is healthy. The danger is surrendering independent thought. Ask yourself, if your preferred leader was proven wrong, would you want to know? If your political opponent did the exact same thing your side is doing, would you call it out? If the law permits something that feels deeply unjust, do you stop at its legal, or do you ask whether it's right? Every authoritarian movement in history depended on two groups: true believers and passive participants. The true believers are loud, but the passive participants are many. The ones who say, "It's not my place, it's complicated, that's just how the system works." Sweatpants philosophy isn't about outrage, it's about reflection. It's about sitting in discomfort long enough to think clearly. Because the real threat to any society isn't a single politician. It isn't one agency. It isn't even one scandal. It's a culture that trades moral courage for tribal security. It's when loyalty replaces conscience, when identity replaces inquiry, when power is defended automatically, no matter who holds it. History doesn't usually announce itself with dramatic music and obvious villains. It moves through ordinary people making small compromises, small silences, small justifications, small acts of looking away. And one day, those small things add up to something much larger than anyone intended. So the question isn't, is this exactly like the past? The question is, are we paying attention to the patterns that made the past possible? Are we thinking independently? Are we holding power accountable even when it's uncomfortable? Are we willing to criticize our own side with the same intensity we criticize the other? Because freedom doesn't survive on autopilot. It survives when ordinary people refuse to surrender their moral judgment to leaders, to parties, to institutions, or to fear. History doesn't repeat in perfect replicas, but human behavior does. And the responsibility has always been and will always be ours.